A school instructor led a group of 7 children into a cave for an outdoor adventure class. At the end of the day, he gave the children a choice: leave the cave through a safe, uneventful entrance, or take a more adventurous route. What happened next caused the instructor to be labeled both a criminal and a hero. Welcome to True Mysteries. In October 1992, Mr. Graham Lipp took his outdoor adventure class to explore the caves at Porth Yr Ogof on the edge of the Brecon Beacons. The outdoor adventure class was from Dollygayer Education Center, where Mr. Lipp was an instructor. Mr. Lipp, in his spare time, had hobbies consisting of caving, mountain climbing, and hiking. He was an experienced outdoorsman and had been in many caves, including this particular cave system. He had researched and explored the cave system and was confident that he knew and understood the dangers. Porth Yr Ogof translates as the gateway to the cave. This cave system hosts the largest entrance to any cave in Wales. This is a popular cave that is managed by the Brecon Beacons National Park Authority. The cave is open to visitors with an estimated 30,000 each year. However, this cave will be closed when it rains. The river flowing into the cave is aptly named the Lightning River in Welsh. The water flows down the creek bed into the main entrance, and as the cave narrows, the speed of the rushing water increases, and the river becomes a raging torrent. This cave is an introductory cave for spelunkers and a tourist attraction for anyone else. This particular group entered the main entrance by a limestone walkway on the east side. Upon entering the cave, there are several options for passageways. The right-hand passage leads to the right-hand series. A small entrance further down leads to Sump 6 and on to a deep, long pool named the White Horse Pool. The pool is named after the white calcite on the walls above the pool. On the left side of the main chamber are 5 more passages leading to other entrances and other passageways, such as the Upper Stream Passage. One could spend a day exploring this network of caves while wading through pools and getting lost only to find yourself emerging in the main passage. This is an extremely fun cave system that hosts many tourists every year. However, if you are adventurous enough to make it all the way to the other end of the cave, just as you can see daylight enticing you to the final exit, you will come across warning signs telling you to turn around. This is a narrow portion of the cave called the Resurgence Pool. This narrow portion of the cave has underwater ledges, fast-moving currents that can pull a swimmer under, and tree roots that can snag a swimmer. Warning signs direct explorers to alternative nearby exits, and the final sign says, "Do not enter the Resurgence Pool unless you are wearing a wetsuit or a life jacket." 11 people have died in this cave system. 10 of them died in the Resurgence Pool. The class consisted of 7 teenagers, all around the age of 14. The students entered the main entrance and spent the day exploring the cave system. Mr. Lipp led the way as the students explored all of the different features of the cave, including the various entrances and the various pools and passageways throughout the cave system. By the end of the day, the time had come for the students to exit the cave system, when Mr. Lipp gave the group a choice. Head to the surface out one of several simple exits, including the main entrance or the White Horse entrance, or take what he described as a more adventurous way out. Of course, with the intrigue of the adventure and the unknown, the group elected to take the more adventurous route by a vote of 7-0. Mr. Lipp then led the group to the Resurgence Pool. On the way to the pool, the children saw a sign that read, "Danger, deep pool ahead." Mr. Lipp pointed it out to the children and said, "As you can see, caving is very dangerous if you are not qualified. A lot of deaths have occurred in these caves." But they continued on. When the 7 children arrived at the Resurgence Pool, they were wearing the same clothes that they had used caving: Wellington boots, waterproof coveralls, jumpers, and jeans. The clothes they were wearing were perfect for caving in a cold, wet cave, but not for swimming. Mr. Lip did not take this into account. He entered the pool first and swam to the center where he treaded water. He called to the children and told them, "Join hands and enter the pool one by one." This was an extremely narrow passage that was very deep. As each student entered, they immediately lost their footing and could not touch. Their clothes dragged them down, and the ice-cold water zapped their energy. There was also a very strong current from the rains that day. The children struggled to cross, but one by one they managed to make it. 14-year-old Stuart Bunston entered the water directly behind Wayne Brown of the same age. Wayne almost immediately began to struggle. As Wayne attempted to cross the freezing water, he kept slipping under, then would fight back to the surface, coughing up water. Wayne went under again, and Stuart caught Wayne with his leg. At this point, Mr. Lip had seen what was happening and made his way over to Wayne and Stuart. But he was so tired from treading water in the ice-cold pool that he couldn't help. Wayne lost consciousness, and Stuart grabbed onto Wayne's torch and dragged him with the help of Mr. Lip. Mr. Lip pushed the boy along as Stuart dragged him with other students coming to help. The students made it to the other side and looked back to see Mr. Lip struggling. His energy was depleted from the cold and from helping the students. As the last two students made it to shore, they watched as Mr. Lip slipped under and his light faded into the darkness below. Now, all of their attention was on Wayne, who at this point was not breathing and whose heart had stopped. But this group of kids was determined. They gave him chest compressions and cleared his airway until his heart began to beat again. The students went for help, and soon emergency and rescue teams arrived and transported Wayne. All students survived. The only casualty was the teacher that led them there. A subsequent investigation into the events of that day revealed that Mr. Lip was experienced and knowledgeable of the cave system. However, it was not known whether he had ever been in the resurgence pool. Another caving instructor, Caroline Potter, revealed that there was a routine when exploring these caves with the children. The routine dictated that the children would exit the cave at the White Horse entrance. This was almost always the case unless there was a reason to use another one of the several safe entrances. The standard routine did not involve the resurgence pool, and Mr. Lip had been specifically ordered to not enter the resurgence pool. Mr. Lip disobeyed direct orders, and it cost him his life. Luckily, all children made it out alive. However, Hugh Thomas, the diver that retrieved Mr. Lip's body, said that Mr. Lip had been pulled down by the current and sucked under a rock ledge on the wall of the cave. His body was also entangled in tree roots. The diver also said that Mr. Lip undoubtedly saved the boy's life. Many people blamed Mr. Lip for putting the children in that life-threatening situation, but they also commended him for giving his life to save the children. On July 7, 1965, 16-year-old John Stevens was in training for the military. They were training in the Carlswark Caves, Stony Middleton, when his captain put his life in danger. The Carlswark is located just south of Sheffield, between the small towns of Eyam and Stony Middleton. The most used entrance to this cave is a small hole covered by tree roots known as the Gin Entrance. The Gin Entrance leads to a crossroads of the main passage and the Eyam Passage. Staying to the left opens into the large chamber known as the Oyster Chamber. The main passage and the Eyam Passage head deeper into the cave system. This is a long passage through deep pools and tight squeezes that leads to another exit and the Melbourne Mine. When it rains, the outlets get washed out with enough water to create a torrent rushing through the caves. The Oyster Chamber also has a hole in the floor that leads down toward the lower entrance. Near the lower passage is a sump that can entirely fill with water. This is the area that 16-year-old John Stevens found himself on that day in July 1965. The Army captain was leading a training exercise of cadets through the cave system. This exercise was standard for recruits to overcome fears, learn how to survive in various environments that they might find themselves in during war. They reached the lower sump, where the captain decided to use a cadet to swim to an opening that the captain believed was not far away. The captain commanded John to swim into the passage. The passage was flooded on their side, but the captain insisted that it should be a short swim to the other side where they could continue through the cave. Not expecting to be swimming, John was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, which were not ideal for swimming. He entered the small passage, submerged, and began swimming. He returned a bit later and claimed that there was no end to the water, the other side was flooded, and he didn't find an exit. The captain reassured him that it was there and ordered him to look again. John went back down, and after a while returned with the same message. He told the captain it was flooded all the way through and there was no way to reach the exit. The captain ordered him to go back. The exit was there, he just wasn't going far enough. John went under for one final swim and didn't return. After a few minutes, the captain decided that something must have happened or that John made it to the other side and couldn't make it back. They sent for help from the Derbyshire Cave Rescue Organization, led by 28-year-old Dave Alsop. Dave Alsop was a relatively well-known diver at this time. He would go on to make great strides in cave diving, and he would be extremely well known in his own right. When the search and rescue team arrived, Dave knew the cave system very well. He also knew that it had been long enough that this dive was most likely a body recovery. There was nowhere for John to have gone, and no way he could have survived. The rescue team dove into the cave and found nothing. They dove the cave several times searching, but could not find John. Finally, they pumped air into the cave, lowering the water level, and after 13 hours, they finally found John, 90 feet from the entrance. His head poking into an air pocket and still alive. He had managed to stay alive for 13 hours in an air pocket, in complete darkness, and not knowing how much air he had. On John's third dive, he had dove back into the passage and swam as far as he could before attempting to turn around, but he had become disoriented. So he scrambled around in the dark cave, feeling around, and just before his air ran out, he found an air pocket and waited. He knew that someone would come looking for him, but he didn't know how much air he had. Not knowing which way to get out, waiting was his only option. After finding John, Dave led John back to the exit. When they arrived, they thought John would be a terrified 16-year-old boy. However, he was a very cocky kid that said he wanted to go back and try it again. It wasn't until he was a 52-year-old grandfather visiting the cave system again that he realized how lucky he was to make it out. After the incident, John stated that the only way that he survived was through his swim training. Every morning he would swim 2 lengths underwater in the army pool. He claimed that this training is what saved his life. After the incident, the Army sent John and his sister on a trip while they held a hearing. John was not invited. When he returned, he was immediately transferred to a different unit. There was no report on any punishment for the captain. Dave Alsop called the dive the most remarkable dive in history. It was the longest free dive in a cave at that time. This is True Mysteries. If you enjoyed the stories, please like, leave comments, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.